Hello and welcome to Audio Johnapedia number 45. It is February 22nd, 2015, and it is Oscars night. The Academy Awards air tonight, and for the second straight year, I have not seen any of the movies nominated. I really haven't paid a whole lot of attention to, Oscar buzz or anything like that. But I'm still going to watch because it's a popular event, and I'll eventually see these movies. But in the meantime, I don't know who to root for, so for the second straight year, I brought along Gabe. Gabe, how are you doing?
Doing good.
All right. Gabe is going to help me decide who I should root for the Academy Awards tonight, because just because I haven't seen these movies doesn't mean that I'm beneath just arbitrary rooting interests based on nothing in particular. Now, do you have a general opinion of this crop of movies compared to some past years? Is this a good year for movies, bad year, just so-so, or?
It's a pretty good year, I think. I mean, it's got a movie by Boyhood from Richard Linklater, who's been making movies forever.
He's been making this movie forever.
That too. The Grand Budapest Hotel from Wes Anderson. He's like a cult favorite. And then, actually good movies like Whiplash and Birdman. Not like those other two were bad or anything, but Birdman and Whiplash appear to be on there because they're actually good. Selma is good. It's a very good crop of movies, especially compared, to whoever's going to win it, it's going to be a good movie.
I thought last year's was a pretty good crop, and I hadn't seen them whenever we did our preview last year, but I ended up seeing most of them, and they all had their merits. The year before, I really thought was a weak year personally, but that was the year that Argo won.
That was a weak year because Argo's kind of a weak winner, but
yeah, I was not crazy about that crop in general. But you're telling me this is a good year, which gives me some hope for a few months from now, whenever I end up actually watching the movies because they're cheap or free or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Whiplash is one of my favorite movies in a while, so.
All right, well, let's get into the Best Picture nominees. Just to rehash the Best Picture nominees for anybody who, like me, doesn't pay a whole lot of attention to this. Just 1 second here. I'm actually going to try a new thing where I actually write down what time we start these little topics so I can actually put timestamps in easily. So let me get to a page in this notebook that I just happen to have sitting around. Literally, I just decided to do this, so everybody is going to have to bear with me. All right. The nominees for Best Picture, we have American Sniper, which is Clint Eastwood, and among others. I'm not going to read all those. I'll just say the movie names. Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, is the full title of it. Boyhood, which you mentioned before. Grand Budapest Hotel, The Imitation Game, Selma, The Theory of Everything, and Whiplash. Now, you were mentioning of these 8, you had seen 6 of them, correct?
Correct.
And the 2 you hadn't seen, it was American Sniper and Theory of Everything?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, these are 2 movies that I haven't seen any of them, so I can't judge whether they're good or bad, but I don't think these are movies that are probably going to win, so that's at least good, and I've heard mixed things really on both of them, so I mean, we don't have to talk too much about those. Of the 6 that you have seen, though, which one do you think's going to win, and which one would you like to see win?
I honestly don't know who will win, because it seems to be like a 50-50 between Birdman and Boyhood.
It seems like Boyhood had a lot of the hype early on, but maybe it peaked too early, I don't know.
I'd say my official guess would probably be Birdman, because it's more of the type of movie you'd expect to win. It's self-knowing, it nods itself at Hollywood. It's I'm trying to think, like Shakespeare in Love, it's kind of sort of like that, where it's nodding at itself about how clever it is.
So it's a movie about Hollywood, so it's a little self-congratulatory, I'm sure. I mean, not that it's bad or anything, but I'm sure that that's to an extent what it is. And I think, Boyhood, though, it was it 12 years, 11 years? How long was it that he was working on it? Somewhere around there?
12 years.
Yeah. And maybe they're just going to give an award for effort there. I don't know. But, I mean, you said that you generally like these movies. Would you have a problem with either of them winning, even if they're not your pick?
Nah, not really. I mean, I didn't love Boyhood as much as I hoped, honestly, because it's almost a 3-hour film, and by the end I was kind of bored. But I don't know, it's ambitious, and it's not the worst thing in the world if somebody gets an award for 12 years of their life, for the effort and the innovativeness. I don't think the movie itself was that innovative, but like the themes in the movie, but the way it was filmed was obviously. That's why I think it could win Best Director, and I would have no problem at all with that.
Yeah, I was going to say that, like, based off of what I've heard as far as the plot, it sounds fairly straightforward. It's just a matter of being filmed over 12 years rather than just having, like, different actors playing the kid or something like that.
Which is more Best Director thing than Best Picture, but so I guess I'd be rooting for Birdman in a way because I like the movie better.
And I mean, Birdman's considered, I mean, just looking at what it says, for instance, on Wikipedia, that it's a black comedy drama film. It's been a while since, like, anything resembling a comedy's won, hasn't it? Like, I guess The Artist maybe would be. It's not really a brooding drama, per se, so.
Birdman's just interesting. Like, Michael Keaton and Ed Norton are both playing off their own personalities in real life. Ed Norton more so. It seems like Keaton, it's not really accurate to... Like, he's out of the spotlight for forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of hard to say if it's actually Keaton's personality just because he's sort of been out of the limelight for... I can't really think of anything he's done in a long time besides this.
Yeah, but in the movie, the guy seems like more of a loser than Keaton has been, It's hard to explain.
I gotcha. Now, I mean, were either of these the ones that you were going to hope wins, or, like, in your sort of dream of dreams?
My dream of dreams would probably be Whiplash winning. That's not going to happen. Whiplash was my favorite movie in forever. It's been a while since I liked the movie as much as Whiplash. I don't know how well it will sit on second viewing, though, but first time through, I was hooked the whole time.
Yeah, I don't really know much about Whiplash. What exactly is that about? If you, like, without spoiling it, what exactly is, like, the theme of it or the overall point of it, I guess?
Pretty easy. It doesn't sound like it when you explain it, but this guy wants to be like an iconic drummer, one of the best drummers of all time, and he goes to this prestigious school to learn, and this teacher, J.K. Simmons, just is like harassing him. Like, he harasses all of his students, but like that's basically the focus of the film, and I'm not going to say anything else to not spoil it. But.
Okay. I mean, it sounds somewhat straightforward, but if you're saying that in a year in which you really liked all the nominees, at least that you've seen, that this one stood out, that tells me I should probably watch it whenever I get a chance.
Put it this way, when you watch the film, you really wish that you could start playing drums.
Well, who's to say I can't start playing drums? I'm not sure my neighbors feel about it, but I guess I could try.
You're not going to start playing drums.
It would be a long way to climb. But regardless, though, you're saying either Birdman or Boyhood's probably going to win. Dream of Dreams will be Whiplash, but you're not holding your breath on it.
Yeah, that's what I get from reading. Obviously, I'm not. Go ahead.
Yeah, as far as the other nominees, anything in particular to say about them? Grand Budapest or Imitation Game or Selma?
Grand Budapest is interesting because I know a few people who are big Wes Anderson films, and I'm like the opposite of Wes Anderson fans in that I seem to prefer his later movies than his earlier movies, whereas Wes Anderson fans prefer his earlier movies and didn't think Grand Budapest was that great. So I don't know what the popular consensus on his movies are.
Yeah, I've never really loved Wes Anderson, so I'm a little worried about seeing. I mean, is it basically just in line with all of his other movies, or because they all seem sort of to run together to me, like just in terms of style, in terms of even cast a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's definitely like the same in terms of style, but it's different. I don't know. I think it's different than any of his other movies, so I like it, but not a Best Picture. Not going to win anyways. I think it's good that he got nominated.
Yeah, I'm not sure what should I think of Selma, because I feel like a lot of times there's a movie that's nominated that's considered to be like an important issue sort of movie, and it becomes hard to judge it just on its own merits as a movie rather than like being viewed as a referendum of your opinions on like the politics involved or anything like that.
Well, I like Selma a lot. Definitely deserved to be nominated for Best Picture. And I think it has a legitimate gripe about not being in any of the other nominations, honestly, after having watched it. Because, I don't know the lead actor's name. Sorry, and I wouldn't be able to pronounce it right anyway. The guy who plays Martin Luther King, he deserved to be probably nominated for Best Actor. and I think it probably deserved to be nominated for Best Director because there's just a few scenes in that movie that I was like, oh wow, this is really good. Not the whole movie, but a few scenes.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's going to be hard with a lot of times if a movie comes out like that that's considered to have this broad importance, it becomes difficult to really know what are we going to think of this movie in however many years. I actually heard a theory earlier today that, and I don't particularly buy this theory, but a theory that Selma could end up being a dark horse to win just because, for the same reason that Argo ended up winning, the idea that it came out and because it was low on nominations outside of picture and people felt like that was not right, that people started to get behind it, which just seems to me to be a terrible reason to vote for a movie for Best Picture, but who knows.
Here's what I read this on from some Oscar expert that said Selma only got nominated for Best Picture because 12 Years a Slave won last year, so they were like, okay, we're good. We don't need to vote for a black person. Because this happened with Catherine Bigelow with Hurt Locker, and then she didn't even get nominated for Best Director for Zero Dark 30, which was a better movie than Hurt Locker, I thought. But I haven't seen Hurt Locker in a while. I don't know. Well, that's just one Oscar industry person's opinion, that there's no chance for Selma because they felt like they already checked off the box for that diversity.
Which seems very strange if you're comparing a movie that takes place in like the 1850s to a movie that takes place in the 1960s. But I don't think anyone's ever accused the Academy of being the most progressive or enlightened in that regard. So, okay, as far as Best Director, the nominees we have, I'm going to mispronounce the names here, so just bear with me. Wes Anderson, Grand Budapest Hotel. Alejandro Gonzalez, is it Inarritu? I don't even want to try it. For Birdman, I'm sorry. At least I didn't say like Alejandro or something. I'll give myself credit there. Richard Linklater for Boyhood. Bennett Miller for Foxcatcher, which isn't even nominated for Best Picture, but we'll talk about that in a second. And then is it Morton Tildum for Imitation Game?
Yeah.
Well, now you mentioned Birdman and Boyhood are the ones that you think are going to be the main contender for picture. Do you think, I know Linklater's gotten a lot of attention for directing for Boyhood. Do you think he's the favorite for director then?
I hope. Actually, this is kind of a weak directing list considering, because I don't know why Foxcatcher is nominated for Best Director if it's not for a picture. Like, if you don't think it's one of the best pictures of the year, it doesn't make sense for it to be nominated for Best Director, because it's not like there's any directorial flourishes that make it more impressive. And then Wes Anderson, I don't know. Imitation Game, that does not belong on Best Director at all. So probably I'd root for Boyhood here.
Okay, and I mean that seems to be the favorite, so good for that, I suppose. As far as are there any directors you think of the other Best Picture nominees that should have gotten a nomination for director as well? Like, you mentioned Selma.
Yeah. That probably should have gotten nominated. I wouldn't make a big fuss about it, but Whiplash was pretty good, well directed. Because a lot of the movie is just the guy playing on drums, and you wouldn't think that'd be interesting to watch, but it is. And what else would there be? I don't know. I'd probably be okay with like Boyhood, Birdman, and then if Selma was nominated as well, I wouldn't really care that much. That's probably the biggest thing. I don't know why the Imitation Games guy is nominated, honestly.
Yeah, that was an interesting one based off of just the hype I've heard about the other movies. And looking at, I don't think any of these directors have ever won an Oscar for Best Director, so it's always interesting to keep an eye on that. And Wes Anderson and I know Bennett Miller got nominated a couple years ago too. And these are guys who've generally had something of resumes. They just haven't gotten that one. And it seems like Wes Anderson would probably be the one of these five that would be the most, you would think would be most likely to get like a lifetime achievement sort of bump, but definitely Linklater because of the ambition of working on this movie for as long as he did, and the fact that the movie is as acclaimed as it was and one of the favorites for Best Picture, getting a lot of attention as well.
Yeah, Birdman might win just because they might think it's the best, might do the double sweep.
I mean, it could end up being. It's weird because for a long time it was sort of assumed that if you won director, you would win picture. In the last few years, there's been a few that have switched on that. Like last year, it didn't apply. In 2012, it didn't apply. 2011, I think. Okay, 2011 it did, and going back, there may have been some as well. But like it used to be that these were considered just synonymous. Like you didn't even have to really bother watching Best Picture whenever the award was handed out because you knew it was going to be whoever won director. I personally think it would be funny if Bennett Miller won for Foxcatcher just to totally throw a wrench in it, but it seems pretty unlikely to me.
I mean, he's a good filmmaker, so I wouldn't be too mad. He made Moneyball, right?
Yeah. And I think Capote as well. Does that sound right? Let me pull up his.
Pretty good movies. I don't.
Yeah, he directed Capote, Moneyball, and Foxcatcher, as it says in the first sentence of his Wikipedia page. And apparently he's dating Ashley Olsen, which is a little weird, but all right.
Okay.
He's about 20 years older than her, but I'm not one care too terribly much about the personal lives of these directors, especially since Woody Allen won an Oscar back in the day for director. So it's not as though the Academy cares, or probably should care. But okay, so for Best Actor, we have Steve Carell for Foxcatcher, Bradley Cooper for American Sniper, Benedict Cumberbatch for The Imitation Game, Michael Keaton for Birdman, and Eddie Redmayne for The Theory of Everything. Now, you mentioned before you hadn't seen American Sniper, Theory of Everything. You have seen the movies with Carell, Cumberbatch, and Keaton. Of those three, who would you pick to win? Who would you prefer to win?
By far, Michael Keaton.
Yeah, he definitely seems to be the favorite. So,
Steve Carell is interesting because I don't know. He's mostly just like in makeup, and I feel like he got nominated because of that.
How much of his nomination do you think it is sort of along the lines of like Bill Murray getting nominated, where it's rewarding somebody for being known as a comedic actor and sort of broadening the horizon a little bit?
Probably a lot. If he's been a dramatic actor all his life, I don't think he would have been nominated for that. But I don't really care enough. Like I like Steve Carell. I think he was fine in the film. He was even good, Best actor.
I've always thought Steve Carell was actually a really good comedic actor, and because people just generally don't look at comedies, particularly that type of comedy, doesn't get a lot of attention for. Like I think his acting, like in The Office, for instance, which people generally aren't thinking of that as being like the height of acting, I guess, just because it's a network sitcom. But I think he was terrific in it for the entire time he was on. I think the show fell apart whenever he left. So I like the idea of him being rewarded, whether this is the movie to reward him or not.
Yeah, I mean, two things. One, it's always been considered comedic acting was harder, and that's why a lot of comedy actors are able to transfer to drama pretty smoothly. And the other thing is, like you said, the AV Club had a list that said like 23 actors who won awards for movies that they shouldn't have won for, but they probably made up for movies that they should have won earlier. And like
Pacino would be a big one, and then Denzel Washington won a few years later when he shouldn't have, because he should have won when Pacino won. It's like a long circle, it seems like.
Yeah, and like Henry Fonda, and I forgot what the movie was, instead of like
On Golden Pond.
Yeah, instead of Gone with the Wind or.
He wasn't Gone with the Wind.
The other massive.
He was in a lot of movies. Yeah, I don't know.
12 Angry Men.
Okay, 12 Angry Men. Yeah, and he was good in that, but I never saw On Golden Pond, so I'm not gonna. But from what I've heard, it was a lot of Lifetime Achievement Awards being given out with that movie.
Probably.
Alright, so you mentioned before, I'm not sure if it was whenever we were recording or beforehand, that this is a category that's marked a lot by actors who should have been nominated that weren't. And you mentioned Selma, for instance. Were there any other ones in particular that you're not sure what they're not doing on this list?
Jake Gyllenhaal, Nightcrawler. Oh my God, he's fantastic in that movie. He's so creepy. It's like he's not Jake Gyllenhaal at all in that movie. It's weird to explain, but basically, whereas like for instance, Benedict Cumberbatch kind of playing the same thing he's always played. If you ever watched Sherlock, he plays.
Yeah, like everything I've ever seen him in, he's been sort of. It's hard to describe. Like he plays his one role fine, but he seems to get a lot of sort of bonus points from American audiences just for being a British guy.
Yeah. He essentially plays the same role. I mean, he plays it a little differently, and he's not at all bad. And then the other part of that problem is that the guy he's portraying. I know I'm not huge on portraying things historically accurate, but the portrayal of him in the movie is apparently just ridiculously inaccurate. Apparently, the guy in real life was this gregarious, like stereotypical homosexual, whereas in the movie they toned down that big time. So I don't know.
I get why they might want to do that, because an audience might see like a very flamboyant thing and think that it's like a very regressive portrayal, even if it's accurate. But I mean, at the same time, if you want to be accurate above all else, rather than, and I hate to use this phrase, but rather than sort of pushing an agenda, because at that point you're basically just telling sort of a story through the lens of the point you're trying to make, rather than through what happened.
It's like this. The best example or parallel I can think of is how Tom Hanks plays the guy in Philadelphia. You barely notice he's gay, and I think the movie tries to do that almost, you know?
Well, I mean, with Philadelphia, though, it's a fictional story, so it's not as much an issue of...
Well, I know, but you know what I mean, though, right?
Yeah, and I think Philadelphia, did a very good job of it. Actually, like, people always make fun of the fact that Tom Hanks won back-to-back Best Actors, and I agree with making fun of the fact that he won for Forrest Gump, but he was outstanding in Philadelphia, and I'll always defend that. But
yeah,
and part of it's because it was subtle, and maybe they wanted that sort of Oscar bait for The Imitation Game, whether it was in the name of trying to actually portray Alan Turing or whatever.
And then I haven't seen Eddie Redmayne, but all accounts he deserved to get nominated, so I don't know.
I don't really know anything about Eddie Redmayne other than this year. I guess he was in Les Miserables, but I don't know.
I mean, he played Stephen Hawking, so I feel like if he put a really good performance out, he was going to get nominated, and he did.
I feel like the film was like a free space for getting nomination, in the same way that Morgan Freeman was going to get nominated for playing Nelson Mandela, because if you play like a figure that's incredibly well known and his mannerisms and like everything about him is so specifically famous, then it's going to end up helping. Which
makes it question why. I wish I knew his name. The lead actor in Selma. We really should search his name. But
and I can pull it up, but I'm not familiar with the man's work outside.
He played Martin Luther King. Like that totally applies. Yeah. I will say this: one thing that what he didn't do, well, which you can hardly blame him, he didn't quite. I think sound like Martin Luther King in his speeches, which and he didn't really look like him. That's less of a concern. But yeah, the speech is the only thing that I didn't quite. I was like, okay, I can kind of tell this isn't Martin Luther King. But can you really blame somebody for that?
The sounding like I mean, it's nice if an actor sounds like the person they're portraying, but at the same time, I don't want them to be doing it in such a way that it sounds like they're just sort of doing an impression of them.
By the way, I don't think we're going to get a chance to talk about Selma again, but have you seen the cast for that? They got Tim Roth as George Wallace, the governor, Tom Wilkinson, Common the rapper, Oprah Winfrey's in it, Giovanni Ribisi, Martin Sheen is uncredited.
Martin Sheen's in it? Wow. I knew about the other one.
He's barely in it. He's in like 5 minutes. He's the judge.
I'm always a big fan of any like major like ensemble cast. Like one of the movie that I'll always point out, and people totally disagree on this, is the movie JFK, which is just because there's such a long list of incredibly famous actors, many of whom are just barely in it. Like you end up having like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau in scenes together, really for not as major scenes by any means, but just because they were able to get all of these people together.
Yeah, I think this movie would qualify under that. I've never seen JFK though. Isn't that Oliver Stone?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm going to try to say this guy's name. David, I
think is right. I think you got that much.
Oyelowo.
Yeah, I always get hesitant on some of these names as far as pronouncing them, because like as bad as it sounds to be like, oh, I don't want to say this guy's name because I can't pronounce it, I also don't want to pronounce it wrong. So
right.
That's
David Oyelowo. Yeah. I'm going with that. David Oyelowo.
But regardless, though, Keaton is definitely the favorite. Keaton's definitely the person that you're picking, so I'll stick with Keaton. And I think it's like I think it's interesting the fact that he's sort of come to this weird career resurgence, sort of out of nowhere.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean.
And then I haven't seen, Bradley Cooper or Eddie Redmayne, but I feel decently comfortable saying I don't want Bradley Cooper to win.
I thought Bradley Cooper. I actually thought he was sort of in a weird way overlooked for Silver Linings Playbook, even though he was nominated for an Oscar because there was so much attention paid to Jennifer Lawrence. I thought he stole the show in it personally, but.
I mean, I like Bradley Cooper, but he's going to sort of be like.
But compared to Keaton, you don't think?
I mean, I didn't see American Sniper, so I couldn't tell you, but I don't know. The trailer makes him look ridiculous a little bit.
I think he gets help, because he gained weight for the role, and that always ends up helping actors. If you gain a lot of weight for the role, or lose a lot of weight for a role, then...
And he changed his voice and everything, from what I heard in the, the thing where he's talking on the phone.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about her later, but that's also a thing that Meryl Streep does, and it sort of annoys me that she gets so much credit for it, but... Again, we'll talk about that in a couple of awards. Let's go on to Best Actress, though. We have Marion Cotillard, 2 Days and One Night, or 2 Days, One Night. Felicity Jones, The Theory of Everything. Julianne Moore, Still Alice. Rosamund Pike, Gone Girl. And Reese Witherspoon, Wild. How many of these movies have you seen? Because there's not a whole lot of overlap with...
I've seen Gone Girl, and that's it.
Gone Girl's the only one you've seen? Okay. I think Julianne Moore is supposed to be... considered the favorite in this one, right? She's been nominated a lot and hasn't won, so that sort of makes sense in that regard.
I think, she's probably the favorite, and I think Reese Witherspoon is also considered very good. Although this is apparently a stacked category, so who knows?
I mean, so Rosamund Pike, since you've seen Gone Girl, is that a nomination you think is deserved, or you think to some extent that's just throwing a bone to movies that were actually pretty popular?
I really liked her in the movie. I think her role was kind of hard. If you haven't seen the movie, it's a little difficult to say why her role is hard, but she's very good. I can't really say anything to spoil it, but yeah, I'm not mad at her getting nominated at all. Let's put it that way.
All right. I think at this point I'm still leaning towards rooting for Julianne Moore, though, because I mean, two of the actresses have already won Oscars. Cotillard and Witherspoon have. I really don't know anything about Felicity Jones or Rosamund Pike aside from like this year, and Julianne Moore's been good for a long time, so yeah, I like the idea of getting recognition. I mean, but since you didn't see these movies so much, let's just go on to the next one. Best Supporting Actor, we have Robert Duvall with The Judge, Ethan Hawke, Boyhood, Edward Norton, Birdman, Mark Ruffalo, Foxcatcher, J.K. Simmons, Whiplash. This is a pretty loaded category in terms of just famous actors. And you said we've gone over. You've seen Boyhood, Birdman, Foxcatcher, Whiplash. Did you see The Judge?
Didn't even know The Judge existed until I just saw it on here.
That was with Robert Downey Jr. I didn't think it got particularly good reviews. So I mean, maybe they just wanted to throw Duvall a bone because he's getting up there in age. I don't know. Yeah,
this is actually a pretty stacked category, not in terms of just famous people, but performance. Norton was the best part about Birdman. I know I said Keaton should have won, but he stole the show in the first half. He disappeared in the second half of the movie, but he was really good. Ethan Hawke I liked him a lot in Boyhood. Ruffalo was better than Steve Carell in Foxcatcher. And then there's J.K. Simmons, who's going to win Whiplash, and deservedly. He's fantastic in Whiplash as the terrorizing teacher.
And he's the kind of actor that makes sense for getting a supporting role because he's been a character actor for so long. He's really never been the star of anything that I can think of, but has had a lot of good small roles and certainly seems like the kind of person that you would like to see win this kind of award. As far as... Go ahead.
That does remind me that some people, I don't know if I necessarily agree, think that Miles Teller, I think his name is, of Whiplash, should have got nominated for leading actor. So there's another name to throw into that pile. I don't know if his performance blew me away as much as to nominated for an Oscar, but...
Now, were any of these nominees, I mean, exempting Duvall because you haven't seen it, but were any of these nominees more or less lead actor performances masquerading as supporting actor, or are they all legitimate supporting actor ones?
You can make a decent argument for Simmons, actually, because he's in like the entire movie, but he's definitely supporting to the lead guy, so I don't know if you could make that argument well.
As long as he's a clear number 2, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah, Hawk isn't sort of... He's the divorced dad, so he's not really in it most of the whole movie. Norton is clearly a supporting actor in every sense. And yeah, Ruffalo is too, so yeah. These are all definitely supporting role actors.
Yeah, one of the historically speaking awards that's always annoyed me was the time that Peter Finch won Best Lead Actor for Network, which he was very good in, but he was not the lead actor in that movie. And just anytime these awards come up, I always think back to that. I was like, is this actually a lead acting performance? Is this actually a supporting acting performance? Have we actually learned how to sort of compartmentalize it? Because you'd also look back at like The Godfather, for instance, where Al Pacino was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, when, for all intents and purposes, he was the main character in the movie. All of the action of The Godfather revolves around Al Pacino, but because Marlon Brando was a lot more famous at the time, they made all the push towards him to get actor. But if you say everything's fine with this, I'm good with it too. And I'll go ahead and root for Simmons too. Why not?
It's funny you say that because the actress in supporting role, the first name I see, you could make an argument she's a lead actress.
All right, so let's move on to that. We have Patricia Arquette for Boyhood, Laura Dern for Wild, Keira Knightley for The Imitation Game, Emma Stone for Birdman, Meryl Streep for Into the Woods. And who were you saying was basically a lead actress of that group?
Well, Patricia Arquette is the number one woman in that movie. She's not like the lead in the sense that it's about the boy, but she is kind of the lead since he's with his mother like the entire movie.
Yeah, one would think that that's sort of a borderline one, but yeah, I mean, you can certainly be the lead female or lead male in a movie and still be a supporting character if you're clearly playing second fiddle to the person of the opposite gender. But I have to say, frankly, I'm very happy to see Meryl Streep finally get recognition for acting. She's such a scrappy underdog. Every year she gets nominated, and she's never in good movies. I don't get it.
I don't either. Apparently, this is not even like good for her. Like I've not heard good things about Into the Woods, but I don't know. She definitely didn't. I don't think she deserved to get nominated. I say that having not seen the movie, of course, but I don't know. Just
she's gotten so many nominations for so many just totally like adequate to subpar sort of performances. It's just like if she's in a movie, she gets nominated.
I saw something funny that said Meryl Streep shouldn't have got it for The Iron Lady, she should have for like Doubt or some other movie. And some other guy says, I'm pretty sure that I'm perfectly okay with Meryl Streep not having won 3 Academy Awards.
I mean, the award she won for The Iron Lady, she won for Kramer versus Kramer, and she won for Sophie's Choice. I'll give her Sophie's Choice, and she's fine in Kramer versus Kramer or whatever. But like, she just isn't in great movies. Like nope. I sent you an Onion article a few days ago, which was sort of underlining this. Like, what's the best movie she's been in? Like, even if she's not a lead actor, like you can make a reasonable case that the best movie she's ever been in is also the worst movie John Cazale was ever in, which is The Deer Hunter. Like, she just isn't in great movies. It's weird. I'm ranting though.
The funny thing about that article, I thought, was that it wasn't like a usual Onion article. It was just making good points. Like, I didn't think
totally
it was
good points.
Satire so much as just like, oh yeah, that's fact.
Well, satire in the sense that I don't think Meryl Streep would actually write the article herself, but I think that a lot of the points could be said by a lot of people. But as far as who do you think should end up winning then? I mean, you mentioned Arquette's performance as being basically a lead performance, but who do you think of the ones that you've seen?
I don't know. I guess Patricia Arquette. I like Emma Stone, but I don't know. Keira Knightley, definitely I wouldn't make her win. I don't think she's going to. So my guess is Laura Dern probably deserves it the most.
Now, had you seen Wild? I don't remember if you...
I have not seen Wild, but I would not be surprised if she's the best performance of this. Although Patricia Arquette would not be... Like, I would be rooting for that, I guess, because I haven't seen Wild, so I can't really root for her to win.
I think I'm just going to go ahead and root against Meryl Streep. Anyone else is fine, whatever.
Meryl Streep's not going to win.
Now, you've seen Imitation Game. What did you think of Keira Knightley's performance?
She's good. I mean... I don't know how to describe it, but
Sounds
like,
unexciting based off of your reaction to the question.
um, well, she's just like competent. Like
She's
it's like
there.
one of her role's not vital. Well, her role's kind of vital to the movie, but like she's trying to think of an example for another movie. But like you watch a movie and you see an actor or actress, and you're like, oh, they're very good. And then if like you would think about them getting nominated for an Oscar, you'd be like, why? I
I'm
don't
trying
know.
to think of. I'm trying to think who would be the baseball player equivalent to her, just to put it in other terms of just being like, okay, they're in a good environment, but they're fine, they do their job, but there's nothing special about them. Like, is this the equivalent of like Angel Paganis or something? Like, what I'm trying to think of how to even think about
Uh,
her.
let's see. I mean, like,
Is the equivalent of like Reggie Sanders on the 2004 Cardinals? Like, what? I mean,
I, I mean,
you're fine.
I feel like it's like I'm like bashing her performance more than I'm trying to because it's not like she's like a bad part of the movie. I just don't understand why she's nominated. I don't know. I just
Maybe lack of viable alternatives this year. I don't know.
like it's not like it's her fault either. By the way, I don't think she could have done anything to get herself nominated. I don't know. I just didn't think the role was like one where you're like, okay, that should be an Oscar nominated role.
Well, I haven't really heard a whole lot of hype about her performance, so I don't think you have to worry too much about that.
I do like Keira Knightley, so I don't mind as much. But
All right. And as far as the other categories, like, are there any other ones that really stand out to you? Like you mentioned, for instance, really enjoying Nightcrawler, which is nominated for original screenplay.
uh,
Is that really a screenplay movie, though? I don't, because it's against Birdman, Boyhood, Foxcatcher, and Grand Budapest Hotel, which seem to be a somewhat of a heavy-hitting.
um, it's how would you describe a screenplay movie?
I mean, it is sort of a tough category because you need a good screenplay to drive everything else, but you kind of need everything else to drive the screenplay. And it becomes harder to separate. And that's why I always have a problem with categories like the editing categories, because I always sort of associate that sort of thing with the director. And it's like, at what
Right.
point do you draw the line? Like, Best Picture is an easy one because you're just saying what movie you thought was the best overall. And the acting ones aren't as tough either. But the ones that are like director, writing, editing, like sound mixing, cinematography, whatever, they all really sort of go together.
No, yeah. The most screenplay of movie, for lack of a better way to say it, is Birdman, probably. Because it's
It seems
a
to be the
movie
most screenplay. I mean, that and like Grand Budapest are probably the most screenplay types, at least from what I've heard. And since
yeah.
Birdman's considered a major favorite to win, the big awards.
Nightcrawler has a pretty good screenplay though, only because the main character that Jake Gyllenhaal plays is probably one of the most interesting characters of any movies in 2014. I think so. I don't know if you should get the screenplay credit for that, even if it's not necessarily full of you know witty things and stuff. It's well paced movie as well. I think things happen at the proper escalation until the climax of the movie. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd kind of root for Nightcrawler just because it didn't get any recognition anywhere else in the Oscars.
Now, I'm looking through there's not a whole lot as far as like hilariously out of place nominees, at least I can see. Every once in a while, you'll have a nominee for like technical awards that are clearly terrible movies, but even this year doesn't seem to really be the case because, like, for instance, like sound editing and sound mixing, you have movies like American Sniper and Birdman that are, I mean, you can say what you will about the movies, but they are Best Picture nominees, so they're probably not considered awful by any means, but not a whole lot that I'm excited about. But maybe I'll see a person with a funny name and I'll just all of a sudden start rooting for them.
Well, if you look at visual effects, like at all the blockbusters, Captain America, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Guardians of the Galaxy, Interstellar, and X-Men: Days of Future Past. None of those are considered bad movies, though.
I think I'll root for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes in that one because I liked the one before it. I haven't seen Dawn, but I liked Rise of the Planet of the Apes, so
I'd
that's when
root
I
for
can.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
See, I never saw. I'm the one person who's not seen that movie, and I heard it's good. I heard it's actually worth seeing, like even if you're not into that kind of like big budget blockbuster movie. And I'm sure I will eventually, but I have no particular affection for it yet, so it's tough.
Yeah. And the adapted screenplay is, I would definitely go for Whiplash. Although I haven't seen Inherent Vice by Paul Thomas Anderson, who made like Magnolia and Boogie Nights.
Yeah, I remember hearing about the movie when it came out, but it doesn't seem to have gotten a whole lot of nominations, so I don't know what exactly the deal with that one was. But that's Reese Witherspoon, I guess, is nominated for that, right? Or is she nominated for something else?
For Wild.
Oh, Wild, okay. So I guess she's actually had a big year. I didn't really realize it until recently, but good for her. Good for her. All right. So I mean, any other hot takes? Doesn't sound like it. All right.
Oh, come on! I want to talk about my opinion on the live-action short films.
All right. Let's hear it.
Um,
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you to everybody who listened. Let's keep this actually short for once in our lives. Hope everybody enjoyed. Hope everybody enjoys the show tonight. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for educating me a little bit. And all right.
All right.
Yeah.